Hello. How are we doing today? I was able to poop 2 pellets as I was walking over here. Not a whole lot. Poop like a deer. Oh, I got this new bottle. Arrowhead. And my mother got me an umbrella. I like the color. I should have worn my, let's make this a little more innocuous. Oh, as I was coming over here, I was raging over multiple things. Crap, I didn't take pictures of the notes. Give me 1 second. Hello. As I was doing all that, there was a lot of noise going. A lot of noise. Like surrounding me. And that's essentially how, well, it's gone now, but wow. Yes. So as I was walking to go poop, there were just cars everywhere. Lots of diamonds. Ooh, shiny. All right. I was, as that stuff was going on, I was thinking of, I was reading this one note that I wrote down, saying, speaking to the future is reminiscent of what the originator of this civilization must have felt like or been like. Feels like talking to children, being like, but Dad, I want human pets. And then I saw this picture on Facebook saying, me and you for real. And it's a picture of a dude with his pet. And then I wrote down something down here saying, no one else. And then I thought of the idea of nothing and no one and all that. And I was like, not like that. Little angry face. And then I saw the word not. And I was like, or that. Because, you know, like I said, it dies with me. After this, the depravity and everything. Is it a means to an end? Possibly? Maybe? Yeah. Anyways, one of the notes that I had here was flying cars, drones for military, fast travel through air in a zero fault manner. And, oh, wait. Before that, in the same one that was like speaking to the future is reminiscent of what the originator of the civilization must have been like. Feels like talking to children, being like, but Dad, I want human pets. And then right below that I wrote down, sex scene last night with my children. And apparently, there's people within the MRI machine that watch the show and like try to feel some sort of connection with me through the fact that I can't poop, and when I'm like struggling or whatever, they will enjoy that and use human trafficked people to feel like they're doing something with me. And I was thinking about that. like there's this, like I think about it this way, like there was a person that created civilization, right? And he said, one day, we're gonna have a civilization that is done away with like all violence and all that kind of stuff. A world where people can be safe. And then the people that perpetrate that civilization somehow start arguing over animals and what their right is as a human being, as a person, and what they do with animals, which I think is just fascinating logic. So, yeah. I don't have pets, I have children. I have peanuts. You could pet a pet. These people stab me in the back. Well, the system stabs me in the back. I don't know about them. But like I said, you know, like I'm struggling with you guys. Like I'm trying to make sure that like the thing that we go into doesn't go back to all this. Anyways, I was listening to Charlie, and he was like flying a drone thing, and I was thinking of the idea of, I remember like Chinese drone shows. This is my Chinese drone show. Anyways, I was thinking of the idea of flying cars. Like a pure, like think about it, like there's like drones, right? There's Chinese military drones, and there's like actual drones that can fly human beings. And I thought that was really cool. The idea that like, let's say like you live in a city or like a hub or something along those lines, and every person would have like a little drone that would get them from point A to point B. Distance is quick, no traffic. Everything is so efficient because of like the AI, the computerized manner in which we would travel and integrate into like highways. Like the ideas of traffic would be gone. Everything would be zero faults. Flying car, but also, you know, military use. Drones are extremely scary when it comes to military use. And hopefully we can see military use be done away with. But you know what I mean? Like, I just thought I just like pictured someone in the future getting into their drone and then just like getting to wherever they need to go like so quickly. Like tires are useful, but I think also like electric drones. So it wouldn't be gas powered. Like would have a decent battery. Let's say it could drive for an hour. How long can you get flying with in an hour? Yes. But yeah, let's talk about sex. Well, listen, I have no one right now. One second. Does anybody? One second. Whenever I glitch out like that, I'm talking to my handlers, okay? Alright, so we're gonna read another chapter of Ender's Game. This next one, I've read multiple times over the years, and it's made me cry quite a bit. There's this idea of not being sure what to do ever, like just praying throughout your like entire life. You know, I've constantly said, I said before in the past that life is one long prayer. So yes. Okay, that's going to be chapter 11. So we did chapter 13. I do chapter 11. I don't know how long it's gonna be. The last chapter took us like 2 hours to do. I should charge some stuff real quick, or finish wiring everything up. Kind of been lax with it. And I forgot food. I didn't bring any food. Oh, I brought a sewing needle. Alright, chapter 11. Veni, Vidi, Vici. Which means I came, I saw, I conquered, I believe. You can't be serious about the schedule of battles. Yes, I can. He's only had his army 3.5 weeks. I told you. We did computer simulations on probable results. And here's what the computer estimated Ender would do. Again, we're all, the idea that the world is a simulation has been kind of killed. It's been talked about ad infinitum to the point where it's just kind of ludicrous. Like when people just say like simulation theory, like people wave it off. But like think about Jane. Think about like the videos that we've seen, the conversations, the interactions, the everything. Think about this book and years. I read this in 5th grade. I was 5th grade, 2005. I was 10 years old. And that was 20 years ago. So this simulation has played out, I don't know how long into the future. My role within it is very strange, very, very strange. Going back to this, going back to the idea of escaping the simulation. Like, is it possible to escape a simulation? what is the end goal of this simulation, and what is the cost to it? I don't know. That, you guys remember that one Levitical line? I don't remember which one it was, but it was the one that like stun locked me. How funny would it be if we read Leviticus? I cannot find it. Nope. We'll get to Leviticus after this. The next section is the burnt offering. So let's thoroughly burp me, and then we can get to Leviticus. I told you. We did computer simulations on probable results. And here's what the computer estimated Ender would do. We want to teach him, not give him a nervous breakdown. The computer knows him better than we do. The computer is also not famous for having mercy. If you wanted to be merciful, you should have gone to a monastery. You mean this isn't a monastery? This is best for Ender too. We're bringing him to his full potential. I thought we'd give him 2 years as a commander. We usually give them a battle every 2 weeks, starting after 3 months. This is a little extreme. Do we have 2 years to spare? I know. I just have this picture of Ender a year from now. Completely useless, worn out, because he was pushed farther than he or any living person could go. We told the computer that our highest priority was having the subject remain useful after the training program. Well, as long as he's useful. Look, Colonel Graff, you're the one who made me prepare this over my protests, if you'll remember. If this is a book that was created because of my video game, my paper video game that I used to play, that's pretty cool. I know, you're right. shouldn't burden you with my conscience by my eagerness to sacrifice little children in order to save mankind is wearing thin. The pole march. The Osher pole? I thought of trains. I mean, The pole march has been to see the hegemon. It seems Russian intelligence is concerned that some of the active citizens on the nets are already figuring how America ought to use the IF to destroy the Warsaw Pact as soon as the buggers are destroyed. Dude, I keep seeing that same guy, and I went to the bathroom at the park and he was just there like waiting at the door. As soon as I passed, he left. And then as soon as I left, he like crossed paths again. Is he Russian? He was Russian. Seems premature. Seems insane. Free speech is one thing, but to jeopardize the league over nationalistic rivalries, and it's for people like that, short-sighted, suicidal people that we're pushing Ender to the edge of human endurance. I think you underestimate Ender. But I fear that I also underestimate the stupidity of the rest of mankind. Are we absolutely sure that we ought to win this war? Sir, those words sound like treason. It was black humor. It wasn't funny. When it comes to the buggers, nothing is funny, I know. Ender Wiggin lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Since becoming commander, he never slept more than 5 hours a night. But the lights went off at 2200 hours and didn't come back until 0600. Sometimes he worked at his desk. Sometimes he worked at his desk anyway. Straining his eye. Yeah, okay, like one of the things that I really enjoy about this, like, outside of like when I'm trying to talk to you guys, like I don't like, well, during the day, being out in the park, seeing one leaving a little part of myself there, but also like seeing how the world interacts with or like proliferates from me or something along those lines. There's a blue car that just like went this way. I'm at an intersection. I missed my stand. I could show you guys, you guys could be parallel with the world. Alright. I think there's someone inside the school. I hear like stomping. Ender Wiggin lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Since becoming commander, he never slept more than 5 hours a night. But the lights went off at 2200 and didn't come back on again until 0600. Sometimes he worked at his desk anyway, straining his eyes to use the dim display. Usually, though, he stared at the invisible ceiling and thought, either the teachers had been kind to him after all, or he was a better commander than he thought. His ragged little group of veterans, utterly without honor in their previous armies, were blossoming into capable leaders. So much so that instead of the usual 4 tunes, he had created 5, each with a tune leader. And a second. Every veteran had a position. He had the army drill in 8-man tune maneuvers. I love rock and roll. Baby, I love rock and roll. Dance with me. He had the army drill in 8-man tune maneuvers and 4-man half tunes, so that a single commander, his army could be assigned as many as 10 separate maneuvers and carry them out at once. No army had ever fragmented itself like that before. The dispersion, wow. I think part of the reason why I didn't want to read the dispersion is because I wanted you guys to like stay here, you know? Yeah, go off here, go off here. I mean, I did say, you know, like, check this out or check this out, like, as the story progresses, but the idea of the dispersion is something that I didn't really like, just because it's like a lost lamb, you know? Sometimes they never come back. And it, like one of the things when I was growing up was, at least in like 2016 and onward, is I put a lot of effort in trying to be there for people. And I had to do like a calculus as to whether being there for people all the time and doing my own thing, like what that calculus was. It's hard. It's very hard. Plus the cars make me look very twitchy, because, you know, this is all fun. Ender had none. Instead, he trained his tune leaders to use their small units effectively in achieving limited goals. Wait, that's not where... No army had ever fragmented itself like that before. But Ender was not planning to do anything that had been done before, either. Most armies practice mass maneuvers, perform strategies. Ender had none. Instead, he trained his tune leaders to use their small units effectively in achieving limited goals. Unsupported, alone, in their own initiative. He staged mock wars after the first week, savage affairs in the practice room that left everybody exhausted. But he knew with less than a month of training, nice, that his army had the potential of being the best fighting group ever to play the game. How much of this did the teachers plan? Did they know they were giving him obscure but excellent boys? Did they give him 30 launchies, many of them underage, because they knew the little boys were quick learners, quick thinkers? Or was this what any similar group could become under a commander who knew what he wanted his army to do and knew how to teach them to do it? Dude, I'm playing back that paper game because, like, that's so early on in my life. that, like, the idea that, like, if I've been controlling this into, like, I thought I got that there was someone before me. So this was in third grade, 2003. I was 8, possibly, when I was playing these games. And if I was, like, soon to replace dude who had to be in his teens, 20s, then the people that I grew up with, the people that I chose, the people that I interacted with, all rippled out into the world or possibly went on their own separate journeys, all to lead to that one crash that I was talking about yesterday. Yes. So I've been ruling the world since I was 8 years old, which is insane. At least. No, it had to be earlier. It had to be earlier. There were so many anomalies within my childhood. Okay. How much of this did the teacher... Wait. The question bothered him because he wasn't sure whether he was confounded or fulfilling their expectations. All he was sure of was that he was eager for battle. Most armies needed 3 months because they had to memorize dozens of elaborate formations. We're ready now. Get us into battle. All right. That was a blue pickup. The AI has switched a lot of words here. I think I'm not going to correct them. I'm just going to say them as they are. The door opened in darkness. Ender listened. A shuffling step. The door closed. He rolled off his bunk and crawled in the darkness the 2 meters to the door. There was a slip of paper there. He couldn't read it, of course, but he knew what it was. Battle. How kind of them. I wish, and they delivered. Ender was already dressed in his Dragon Army flash suit when the lights came on. He ran down the corridor at once, and by 0601, he was in the door of his army's barracks. We have a battle with Rabbit Army at 0700. It's 6:41 right now. I want us warmed up in gravity and ready to go. Strip down and get to the gym. Dude, this is gonna be fun. Okay. Cornwell quality tools. Hell yeah. Alright. Now that I said that, maybe it won't be as fun, but we'll see. Oh, also, visitors, please check in at the office. As I say that, should I put my sweater on? I didn't even bring sweatpants today. I'm gonna be cold. Yeah, let me put my sweater on. And let me smoke some Schweed real quick. Strip down and get to the gym. Bring your flash suits and we'll go to the battle room from there. What about breakfast? I don't want anybody throwing up in the battle room. Can we at least take a leak first? No more than a deciliter. They laughed. The ones who didn't sleep naked stripped down. Everyone bundled up their flash suits and followed Ender at a jogs through the corridors to the gym. He put them through the obstacle course twice, then split them into rotations on the tram, the mat, and the bench. Don't wear yourselves out. Just wake yourselves up. We didn't need to worry about exhaustion. They were in good shape, light and agile, and above all, excited about the battle to come. A few of them spontaneously began to wrestle. The gym, instead of being tedious, was suddenly fun because of the battle to come. Their confidence was the supreme confidence of those who have never been into the contest and think they are ready. Well, why shouldn't they think so? They are, and so am I. At 0640, he had them dress out. He talked to the toon leaders and their seconds while they dressed. Rabbit Army is mostly veterans, but Karn Karby was made their commander only 5 months ago, and I never fought them under him. He was a pretty good soldier, and Rabbit has done fairly well in the standings over the years, but I expect to see formations, so I'm not worried. At 0650, he made them all lie down on the mats and relax. Then at 0656, he ordered them up and then jogged along the corridor to the battle room. Ender occasionally leapt up to touch the ceiling. The boys all jumped to touch the same spot on the ceiling. The ribbon of color led to the left. The Rabbit Army had already passed through that to the right. And at 0658, they reached their gate to the battle room. The toons light up in 5 columns. A and F ready to grab the side handholds and flip themselves out toward the sides. B and D lined up to catch the 2 parallel ceiling holds, flipping upward into null gravity. C-Toon were ready to slap the sill of the doorway and flip downward. Up, down, left, right. Ender stood out front between columns so he'd be out of the way and reoriented them. Which way is the enemy's gate? Down, they all said, laughing. And in that moment, up became north, down became south, and left and right became east and west. The gray wall in front of them disappeared. And the battle room was visible. It wasn't a dark game, but it wasn't a bright one either. The lights were about half, like dusk. In the distance, in the dim light, you could see the enemy door. Their lighted flash suits already pouring out. Ender knew a moment's pleasure. Everybody had learned the wrong lesson about Bonzo's misuse of Ender Wiggin. They all dumped through the door immediately, so that there was no chance to do anything other than name the formation they would use. Commanders didn't have time to think. Well, Ender would take the time and trust the soldiers' abilities to fight with flash legs to keep them intact as they came late through the door. Ender sized up the shape of the battle room. The familiar open grid of most early games, like the monkey bars at the park, 7 or 8 stars scattered through the grid. There were enough of them and in forward enough positions that they were not worth going for. Spread to the near stars, Ender said. See, try to slide the wall. If it works, A and F will follow. If it doesn't, I'll decide from there. I'll be with Dean. Move. All the soldiers knew what was happening, but tactical decisions were entirely up to the toon leaders. Even with Ender's instructions, they were only 10 seconds late getting through the gate. Rabbit Army was already doing some elaborate dance down their end of the room. And all the other armies Ender had fought in. He would have been worrying right now about making sure he and his toon were in their proper place, in their formation. Instead, he and all his men were only thinking of ways to slip around and past the formation, control the stars and the corners of the room, and then break the enemy formation into meaningless chunks that didn't know what they were doing. Even with less than 4 weeks together, the way they fought already seemed like the only intelligent way, the only possible way. Ender was almost surprised that Rabbit Army didn't know already that they were hopelessly out of date. C-Toon slipped along the wall, coasting with their bent knees facing the enemy. Crazy Tom, the leader of C-Toon, had apparently ordered his men to flash their own legs already. It was a pretty good idea in this dim light, since the lighted flash suits went dark wherever they were frozen. It made them less easily visible, and it would commend him for that. Rabbit Army was, yeah, okay. I have to give props to my younger self, because this thing of the way they fought already seemed like the only intelligent way. There's this idea of like in that game, in the Battlestar game that like the spaceship, starships, sure. The game that I had created, it was a 2-player game, so like you couldn't just go and like kill everybody, you know. You had to take turns. You had to. At some point, I always won, obviously, but yeah. This idea of like how to use language, how to interact with people, how to not know anything, you know, because like obviously, yeah, you know, what does it mean to create a game? Starship, KNF something. What a strange life. C-Tune slipped along the wall, coasting with their bent knees facing the enemy. Crazy Tom, the leader of the C-Tune. Oh, let me relax a little bit, maybe, possibly. Oh goodness. What's my phone at? 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I'm trying to charge all my stuff. My laptop battery was at 50% when I decided to leave the Escalade, the place I'm residing in right now, just because apparently if people think I'm stuck there all the time, it'll be weird, according to the story, or that's what I gathered, so I left. Crazy Tom, the leader of C-Tune, had apparently ordered his men to flash their own legs already. I'm gonna smoke again. I want to. 1 second. You know, when I got into middle school, and I think I smoked weed for the first time when I was like 14 years old, maybe. I was thinking of like what weed represented, and I always thought of this idea of weed being a way to like numb yourself within a society that you don't feel like you fit into. I think that's beautiful. I think one of the things of Rastafarianism is also Zion. So I think that's really, really cool. Alright. Rabbit Army was able to drive back C-Tune's attack, but not until Crazy Tom and his boys had carved them up, freezing a dozen rabbits before they retreated to the safety of a star. But it was a star behind the rabbit formation, which meant they were going to be easy pickings now. Hansu, commonly called Hot Soup, was the leader of the tune. He slid quickly along the lip of the star to where Ender knelt. How about flipping off the north wall and kneeling on their faces? Do it, Ender said. I'll take B south to get behind them. Then he shouted, A and E slow on the walls. He slid forward along the star, hooked up his feet on the lip, and flipped himself up to the top wall, then rebounded down to E-Tune's star. In a moment, he was leading them down against the south wall. They rebounded in near perfect unison and came up behind the two stars that Karn Karvi soldiers were defending. It was like cutting butter with a hot knife. The Rabbit Army was gone. Just a little cleanup left to do. We made it, boys. Someone was watching for a while. Ender broke his tunes up into half tunes to scour the corners for any enemy soldiers who were whole or merely damaged. In 3 minutes, his tune leaders reported the room. Only one of Ender's boys was completely frozen. One of C-Tune, which had borne the brunt of the assaults. And only 5 were disabled. I think there was a fly on the Bible just now. You. I need sweatpants. Soldier boy, so. Where was I? Ah, yes. Most were damaged, but those were leg shots, and many of them were self-inflicted. All in all, it had gone even better than Ender expected. Wait, was that the first fight? That was wild. That's how it goes. You guys didn't even see. I was being tortured the entire time. Ender had his tune leaders do the honors at the gate. 4 helmets at the corners, and Crazy Tom to pass through the gate. Most commanders took whoever was left alive to pass the gate. Like if the world is a simulation with it's like a giant chess board with billions of pieces, and one of them is king. And then we have, our bishops, our knights, all the people. Ender may be representative of Jane, And this is what I'm saying. Is it possible to break out of the simulation? Like, if I am God, and I dictate how the world goes. Do you guys do you guys get the fractal nature of something like that? I don't know. I need a shower. I need to wash my head, my scalp. Four helmets at the corners, and Crazy Tom to pass through the gate. Most commanders took whoever was left alive to pass the gate. Ender could have picked practically anyone. Good battle. That's actually kind of how like I interact with YouTube. Like when I interact with CoffeeZilla was added to the algorithm, which as I was listing people off, that was the person that came to mind, but I didn't name him because he hadn't showed up with the algorithm yet. So yes, I can't remember. Oh, shout out to Toast and Saikuno. Though Saikuno is interesting. He was like the self-deprecating version of myself. Well, like I said, that whole language and the only way to be or something like that. I don't know, man. I don't know. I do not know. He was a little mean. I bet. But most people were, weren't they? Oh, the pain. The development of the commander is going well. I just don't know how this plays out in the 3D world. Like, okay, let's say like this here is like a bubble. Like I build my little nest, right? And I have like this little bubble, and whenever I go outside, I'm kind of like watching it, like. And I mean, that's kind of the same thing that the organization does. It's how they view everything. It's how they view everything. That's the thing. It's how they view everything. I don't know. The lights went full. Major Anderson himself came through the teacher gate at the south end of the battle room. He looked very solemn as he offered Ender the teacher hook that was ritually given to the victor in the game. Ender used it to thaw his own army's flash suits, of course, and he assembled them in tunes before thawing the enemy. Crisp military appearance. That's what they wanted when Carby and Rope and Rabbit Army got their bodies under control again. They may curse us and lie about us, but they'll remember that we destroyed them. And no matter what they say, other soldiers and other commanders will see that in their eyes, in those rabbit eyes, they'll see us in neat formation, victorious and almost undamaged in our first battle. Dragon Army isn't going to be an obscure name for long. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. How do I step into a world that, which is a fascinating idea. Like my mentality has switched completely from last year. I was pushing into, I'm pushing forward? I don't know. Karn Carby came to Ender as soon as he was unfrozen. He was a 12-year-old, but apparently made commander only in his last year at the school. So he wasn't cocky like the ones who made it at 11. I'll remember this, thought Ender, when I am defeated, to keep dignity and give honor when it's due, so that defeat is not disgrace, and I hope I don't have to do it often. Anderson dismissed Dragon Army last, after Rabbit Army had straggled through the door that Ender's boys had come through. Then Ender led his army through the enemy's door. The light along the bottom of the door reminded them of which way was down once they got back to gravity. They all landed lightly on their feet, running. They assembled in the corridor. It's 07:15, Ender said. And that means you have 15 minutes for breakfast before I see you all in the battle room for the morning practice. You could hear them silently saying, "Come on, we won. Let us celebrate." "All right," Ender answered. "You may. You have your commander's permission to throw food at each other during breakfast." They laughed. They cheered. And then he dismissed them and sent them jogging to the barracks. He caught his toon leaders on the way out and told them he wouldn't expect anyone to come to practice until 07:45. And the practice would be over early. So the boys could shower. Half an hour for breakfast, then no shower after a battle. It was all stingy. But it would look lenient compared to 15 minutes. And Ender liked having the announcement of the extra 15 minutes come from the toon leaders. Let the boys learn that leniency comes from their toon leaders, harshness from their commanders. It will bind them better in the small, tight knots of this fabric. Ender ate no breakfast. He wasn't hungry. Instead, he went to the bathroom and showered, putting his splash suit in the cleaner so it would be ready when he was dried off. He washed himself twice and let the water run on him. It would all be recycled. Let everybody drink some of my sweat today. They had given him an untrained army, and he had won. Not just nip and tuck either. He had won with only 6 frozen or disabled. Let's see how long other commanders keep using their formations now that they've seen what a flexible strategy can do. He was floating in the middle of the battle room when his soldiers began to arrive. No one spoke to him, of course. He would speak, they knew, when he was ready and not before. When all were there, Ender hugged himself near them and looked at them one by one. "Good first battle," he said, which was excuse enough for a cheer. An attempt to start a chant of "Dragon, Dragon," which he quickly stopped. Dragon Army did all right against the rabbits, but then an enemy isn't always going to be that bad. That had been a good army. C2, your approach was so slow, they would have had you from the flanks before you got into good position. You should have split and angled in from 2 directions so they couldn't flank you. A&E, your aim was wretched. The tallies show that you averaged only 1 hit for every 2 soldiers. That means most of the hits were made by attacking soldiers close in. That can't go on. A competent enemy would cut up the assault force unless they have much better cover from the soldiers at a distance. I want every toon to work on distant marksmanship at moving and unmoving targets. have tunes, take turns being targets. I'll thaw the flash suits every 3 minutes. Now move. Will we have any stars to work with as Tatsu to steady our aim? I don't want you to get used to having something to steady your arms. If your arm isn't steady, freeze your elbows. Now move. The tune leaders quickly got things going, and Ender moved from group to group to make suggestions and help soldiers who were having particular trouble. The soldiers knew by now that Ender could be brutal in the way he talked to groups. But when he worked with an individual, he was always patient, explaining as often as necessary, making suggestions quietly, listening to questions and problems and explanations. But he never laughed when they tried to banter with him, and he soon stopped trying. He was commander every moment they were together. He never had to remind them of it. It simply was. They worked all day with a taste of victory in their mouths, and cheered again when they broke half an hour early for lunch. Is it like I'm trying to convince myself that I'm God? Is that why I keep saying it? That is a possibility. At the same time, I'm God, fuck you. They worked all day with the taste of victory in their mouths, and cheered again when they broke half an hour early for lunch. Ender held the tune leaders until the regular lunch hour to talk about the tactics they had used and evaluate the work of their individual soldiers. Then he went to his own room and methodically changed into his uniform for lunch. He would enter the commander's mess about 10 minutes late, exactly the timing that he wanted. Since this was his first victory, he had never seen the inside of the commander's mess hall, and had no idea what new commanders were expected to do. But he did know what he wanted to enter, that he wanted to enter his last today, when the scores for the morning's battles were already posted. Dragon Army will not be an obscure name now. There was no great stir when he came in, but when some of them noticed how small he was, and saw the dragons on the sleeves of the uniform, they stared at him openly. And by the time he got his food and sat at a table, the room was silent. Ender began to eat slowly and carefully, pretending not to notice that he was the center of attention. Gradually, conversation and noise started up again. And Ender could relax enough to look around. One entire wall of the room was a scoreboard. Soldiers were kept aware of an army's overall record for the past 2 years. And here, however, records were kept for each commander. A new commander couldn't inherit a good standing from his predecessor. He was ranked according to what he would have done. Wait, hold on, what? Ender had the best ranking, perfect one-loss record. Of course, in the other categories, he was far ahead. Average soldiers, disabled. Average enemy, disabled. Average time elapsed before victory. In every category, he was ranked first. When he was nearly through eating, someone came up behind him and touched his shoulder. Mind if I sit? There's a fly on my hand. Now it's on my leg. Now it's on the Bible. There's a police officer. Nice. And didn't have to turn around to know it was Dink Meeker. Oh, Dink, said Ender. Sit. You gold-plated fart, said Dink cheerfully. We're all trying to decide whether your scores up there are a miracle or a mistake. I'll be back. Also, I do want to talk about this idea. There's a lot of, see this fly? So the organization, the fly included, whoever's controlling the fly. At this point, I think I'm controlling the fly. And I am attracted to myself. Whenever I see myself, sometimes like I don't think you can get it, but get the fuck off me. It was on my backpack and then it jumped on me as soon as I said you can get it. That was so funny. When I go like this, right? And then I like I think of like the idea of like people like looking at me and like seeing me as a piece of me and like only like wanting. I've only ever been lusted after, it feels like, you know? Never really like paid attention to my mind, which I think is maybe part of the issue. I've only ever been seen as a piece of meat within this organization, which is a callback to that sex scene that I was talking about yesterday or last night. After the climax, let's say, I went on Tumblr and just posted a lot of gore because I was very upset. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna smoke real quick. B. Also, when I say that thing about it being the only way to be, about the language and all that, it's the only way to be or talk in an intelligent way in a world where the world sees you as a piece of meat, you know? And again, the whole fractal freaks me out because the idea of being seen as a piece of meat and not something transcendent is, I think, part of the reason why the Bible was created in the first place. Which I think was why we intersected also, because the studio was set up in a way in which at some point that would be my only option because I didn't want to interact with anybody. And then through interacting with the Bible, we go back to different things. And also I had a little bit of, I opened the door a little bit when I went to my Galaxy. I could have turned off the Google recommended stuff, the news feed there, but I got recommended Primeval from that show, or from Google Slides, and that was insane. And it felt amazing, and yeah. now understanding everything about like the Ashura poles, I kind of want. I feel very conflicted right now. Okay, because we left media, right? We left all that stuff, and like I said, like it's strange because it's an alien language, and sometimes the stress of the world doesn't allow you to poop, and I think that's the part of the issue. Like right now, like I'm currently, and I mean sometimes I just get constipated for no reason. That's also another thing. Possibly because of the noise, or not. I don't know, okay? I don't know. I dream of a world. I have to be careful with my water intake because yesterday I was trying to pee and like I was like every time I was like, "Ooh, this is a good place to pee," someone would like come out and be like watching. I found like this one place next to a graveyard, the graveyard, and as I was peeing there, a car was coming forward and I had to like walk as I was peeing to hide myself from the people that would see me pee. So a lot of gore. Because I don't like the system. And the system doesn't let me pee, which is strange. It's Give me a second. You're gonna see nothing. Ho, Dinkmaker, said Under. Sit. You gold-plated fart, said Dink cheerfully. We're all trying to decide whether your scores are up there are a miracle or a mistake. A habit, said Under. One victory is not a habit, Dink said. Don't get cocky. When you're new, they seed you against weak commanders. Karn Karbi isn't exactly on the bottom of the rankings. It was true. But are all those spiritual things reduced down to something like the Ashura pole? I don't know. It's something that like it fills me with disgust, and I want to punch something, and that something is I don't know. I don't know. Karn Karbi isn't exactly on the bottom of the rankings. It was true. Karbi was just about in the middle. He's okay, Dink said, considering that he only just started. Shows some promise. You don't show promise. You show threat. Threat to what? Do they feed you less if I win? I thought you told me this was all a stupid game and none of it mattered. Dink didn't like having his words thrown back at him. not under these circumstances. You were the one who got me playing along with them. But I'm not playing games with you, Ender. You won't beat me. Probably not, Ender said. I taught you, Dink said. Everything I know, said Ender. I'm just playing it by ear right now. Congratulations, said Dink. It's good to know I have a friend here. But Ender wasn't sure Dink was his friend anymore. Neither was Dink. After a few empty sentences, Dink went back to his table. Ender looked around when he was through with his meal. There was quite a few small conversations going on. I was thinking of the idea of colors. Because, like, someone just walked by right here with their dog, a little Yorkie. And he was wearing a red shirt. And I was thinking of that, the contrast between red and blue. And then we get to purple, right? And then with purple, you get to black and white. At least for me, like logically, like the idea of colors and like the logical steps that go into like not a colorless world, but like ideas of like to me, the black in the flag represents, well, death, because I've always been very goth. But like this idea of, if the Bible says we were to wear white at the end, and the black and the flag is colored black, that in essence is blue. So we get purple and blue, and then just the cycle starts all over again with all the colors. Yes. Ender spotted Bonzo, who was now one of the oldest commanders. Rose the Nose had graduated. Petra was with a group in a far corner, and she didn't look at him once, since most of the others stole glances at him from time to time, including the ones Petra was talking with. Ender was pretty sure she was deliberately avoiding his gaze. That's the problem with winning right from the start, thought Ender. You lose friends. Give them a few weeks to get used to it. By the time I have my next battle, things will have calmed down in here. And I still don't know if, another police officer, black and white. Yeah. Sometimes the leniency in the system of the police state, I feel, is a little biased towards certain peoples. So I don't conflicted about the entire thing. Since most of the others stole glances at him from time to time, including the ones Petra was talking with, Ender was pretty sure she was deliberately avoiding his glance. That's the problem with winning right from the start, thought Ender. You lose friends. Give them a few weeks to get used to it. Wait, what? By the time I have my next battle, things will have calmed down in here. Karn Karbi made a point of coming to greet Ender before the lunch period ended. It was again a gracious gesture, and unlike Dink, Karbi did not seem wary. Right now, I'm a disgrace, he said frankly. They won't believe me when I tell them you did things that nobody's ever seen before. So I hope you beat the snot out of the next army you fight. It was a favor to me. That is so many antennas on that car. There's a red truck, no, red sedan? Yes. As a favor to you, Ender said, and thanks for talking to me. I think they're treating you pretty badly. Usually new commanders are cheered when they first join the mess. But then usually a new commander has had a few defeats under his belt before he first takes it in there. I only got in here a month ago. If anybody deserves a cheer, it's you. But that's life. Make them eat dust. I'll try. Karn Karbi left, and Ender mentally added him to his private list of people who also qualified as human beings. That night, Ender slept better than he had in a long time. Slept so well, in fact, that he didn't wake up until the lights came on. He woke up feeling good. Jogged on out to take a shower. He did not notice the piece of paper on his floor until he came back and started dressing in his uniform. He also saw the paper because it moved in the wind, and he snapped out the uniform to put it on. He picked up the paper and read it. I'm really glad that I didn't drink all that water, because I think this is trying to make me pee right now. Petra, Arcanian, Phoenix Army, 0700. It was his old army, the one he had left less than 4 weeks before, and he knew their formations backward and forward. Partly because of Ender's influence, they were the most flexible of armies, responding relatively quickly to new situations. Phoenix Army would be the best able to cope with Ender's fluid, unpatterned attack. The teachers were determined to make life interesting for him. 0700 said the paper, and it was already 0630. Some of his boys might already be headed for breakfast. Ender tossed his uniform aside, grabbed his flash suit, and in a moment stood in the doorway of his army's barracks. Gentlemen, I hope you learned something yesterday, because today we're doing it again. It took a moment for them to realize that he meant a battle, not a practice. It had to be a mistake, they said. Nobody ever had battles 2 days in a row. He handed the paper to Fly Molo, the leader of Atun, who immediately shouted, "Flash suits," started changing clothes. "Why didn't you tell us earlier?" demanded Hatsu. Hot had a way of asking Ender questions that nobody else dared. "I thought you needed the shower," Ender said. "Yesterday, Rabbit Army claimed we only won because the stink knocked them out." The soldiers who heard him laugh. "Didn't find the paper till you got back from the showers, right?" Ender looked at the source of the voice. It was Bean, already in his flash suit, looking insolent. "Time to repay old humiliations, is that it, Bean?" "Of course," Ender said, contemptuously. "I'm not as close to the floor as you are." More laughter. Bean flushed with anger. "It's plain we can't count on old ways of doing things," Ender said. "So you'd better plan on battles anytime, and often. I can't pretend I like the way they're screwing around with us. But I do like one thing. That I've got an army that can handle it." After that, if he had asked them to follow him to the moon without spacesuits, they would, have done it. Petra was not Concarby. She was more flexible. She had more flexible patterns and responded much more quickly to Ender's darting, improvised, unpredictable attack. As a result, Ender had 3 boys flashed and 9 disabled at the end of the battle. Petra was not gracious about bowing over his hand at the end either. The anger in her eyes seemed to say, "I'm your friend, and you humiliate me like this." Ender pretended not to notice her fury. He figured that after a few more battles, she'd realize that in fact she had scored more hits against him than he expected anyway. Ever would again. He was still learning from her. In practice today, he would teach his toon leaders how to counter the tricks Petra had played on them. Soon they would be friends again. He hoped. At the end of the week, Dragon Army had fought 7 battles in 7 days. The score stood 7 wins and 0 losses. Ender had never had more losses than in the battle with Phoenix Army. And in 2 battles he had suffered not 1 soldier frozen or disabled. No one believed anymore that it was a fluke that he put him first. A fluke that put him first in the standings. He had beaten top armies by unheard of margins. It was no longer possible for the other commanders to ignore him. A few of them sat with him at every meal, carefully trying to learn from him how he had defeated his most recent opponents. Is this a mockery of my current situation? Let the sirens ring. Get 'em, boys. Again, he hoped. He told them freely, confident that few of them would know how to train their soldiers or their toon leaders to duplicate what he could do. And while Ender talked with a few commanders, much larger groups gathered around the opponents Ender had defeated, trying to find out how Ender might be beaten. There were many who hated him. Hated him for being young, for being excellent, for having made their victories look paltry and weak. Ender saw it first in their faces when he passed them in the corridors. Then he began to notice that some boys would get up in a group and move to another table if he sat near them at the commander's mess. And there began to be elbows that accidentally jostled him in the game room. Feet that got entangled with his when he walked into and out of the gym. Spittle and wads of wet paper that struck him from behind as he jogged through the corridors. They couldn't beat him in the battle room and knew it. So instead, they would attack him where it was safe, where he was not a giant but just a little boy. Again, I put myself in very precarious situations. Ender despised them, but secretly, so secretly that he didn't even know himself. He feared them, which is such little torments that Peter had always used, and Ender was beginning to feel far too much at home. These little annoyances were petty, though, and Ender persuaded himself attacked them as another form of praise. Already the other armies were beginning to imitate Ender. Now more soldiers attacked with knees tucked under them. Formations were breaking up now, and more commanders were sending out tuners to slip along the walls. None had cut on yet to Ender's 5-tune organization. It gave them the slight advantage that when they had accounted for the movements of 4 units, they wouldn't be looking for a 5th. Ender was teaching them all about null gravity tactics. But where could Ender go to learn new things? We're at 85%. 100% there. I'm not a fan of my phone dying or like the battery going down while I'm going live. I unplug it and then I'm charging other things and then the battery drains. I think what we'll do is maintain it as it is. I don't think you're supposed to keep the charger in. Though this is a smart charger, I believe, possibly. So I think it regulates the battery a little bit better, possibly. It would be cool. What do you guys think? We began to use the video room, filled with propaganda vids about Mesa Rockham and other great commanders of the forces of humanity in the first and second invasion. Ender stopped the general practice an hour early and allowed his tune leaders to conduct their own practice in his absence. Usually they staged skirmishes, tune against tune. Ender stayed long enough to see that things were going well, then left to watch the old battles. Most of the vids were a waste of time. Heroic music, close-up of commanders, and medal-winning soldiers. Confused shots of Marines invading bugger installations. But here and there, we found useful sequences, like this fly that keeps flying around my arms, in my hand. Oh, I'm gonna get you. And then to my backpack. Why are you hiding? Ships, like points of light, maneuvering in the dark of space, or better still, the lights on shipboard plotting screens, showing the whole of a battle. It was hard from the videos to see all 3 dimensions, and the scenes were often short and unexplained. But Ender began to see how well the buggers used seemingly random flight paths to create confusion. How they used decoys and false retreats to draw the IF ships into traps. Most battles had been cut into many scenes, which were scattered through the various videos. By watching them in sequence, Ender was able to reconstruct whole battles. He began to see things that the official commentators never mentioned. They were always trying to arouse pride in human accomplishments and loathing of the buggers. But Ender began to wonder how humanity had won it all. Human ships were sluggish. Fleets responded to new circumstances unbearably slow, while the bugger fleet seemed to act in perfect unity. responding to each challenge instantly. I do want to say one thing, as I was reading this, it was kind of like a conversation about them, you know, and like this like headspace that you go into outside of just the ashra poles and all of that. Like there are certain religious experiences that are experienced in your brain, like psychedelically, just by interacting with media in some sense. And as I was reading that, I was thinking of when it says being able to see the world or the game in like its scale. I was thought about the stock market, and then I thought about how I went bankrupt, and then I thought about how different this would be, this interaction, like the interactions with my mother and all of that, if I actually had money, and how being here is like essentially like necessary. Like I was thinking about these things as I was reading, but then there's cars that pass by, and I don't know what you guys are thinking. I don't know if the cars are like helping, or I don't know if, you know, like, are you guys just paying attention to like, ooh, that's a roar, or, you know, like this idea of like something amorphous being pulled from the, you know, like distractions. Like it seems like the loudness is useful, but at the same time, I'm trying to breed a certain type of something, you know. Like, how far can we stretch the limits of cognitive ability without performance-enhancing drugs, you know? And then I think maybe conversations about weed within that are also important. But I think we'll get to that at a certain point. We'll talk about that, because I'm not ready to stop smoking weed. It helps me out. Puts me in specific headspaces, or removes my me from myself and turns me into they, or something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure. Or helps with entering Zion, I think. I'm not sure. Oh look, a little angel. Of course, in the first invasion, there is something to be said about listening to the words, though, because like, if you're not listening to the words, then atrocities ensue. You know, how much are you paying attention? Like sometimes, like, I'll be listening to something, and like I'll be like rooting for war out of nowhere. You know, I'm just like, oh, heck yeah, you know. So it's, again, I don't know the place of anything in this world. I just know that the world is a mess. Of course, in the first invasion, the human ships were completely unsuited to fast combat. But then so were the bugger ships. It was only in the second invasion that the ships and weapons were swift and deadly. So it was with the buggers, not the humans, that Ender learned strategy. He felt ashamed and afraid of learning from them, since they were the most terrible enemy. Ugly and murderous and loathsome. But they were also very good at what they did, to a point. They always seemed to follow one basic strategy only: gather the greatest number of ships at one key point of conflict. They never did anything surprising, anything that seemed to show either brilliance or stupidity in a subordinate officer. Discipline was apparently very tight. There was one oddity. There was plenty of talk about Mesa Rockham, but precious little video of his actual battle. Some scenes from early in the battle. Rackham's tiny force looked pathetic against the vast power of the main bugger fleet. The buggers had already beaten the main human fleet out of the Comet Shield. So, like, if Zion is actually a place, if, like, there's a transcript going on in my head, and I'm reading words to you guys, imagine, like, the transcript, and imagine if I continue to say Zion, like I'm in Zion when I'm saying these things, and there's an MRI machine that is transcribing something. There is a place in the future that we reach where that transcript is being shown to people, and people can actually possibly see that transcript of themselves and maybe see a reflection, not in an algorithmic sense that we see today, because I don't think that's, like, spell it out, you know, like, this is you, or who are you, or something along those lines. I don't know. I have to pee. So, like, this right here, like, when he's saying that he's, like, rewatching old stuff, like, imagine, like, someone in the future being like, I'm gonna take the system down. Or you know, just studying or whatever. And, again, I say, you know, go ahead, but, yeah, I don't know. Life is insane, and I don't know if I make the right decisions. I don't know if, like, the world that is created, is something lost? I do feel like something is lost. Nature. There's this idea that I don't really like within Zion, that in order to feel beauty, so you have to turn something ugly, or in order to feel ugly, you have to turn something beautiful, or something along those lines. And I don't like that too much. I'm not a huge fan. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Enjoy the videos. I'm fighting for my life over here. All right. Well, not really. Kind of. It's nice that I have a place where I have electricity now, and I'm not really stressing. Well, I am, but I'm not. The more I'm here, like, it's like, things are a numbers game. If you drive while intoxicated, the more you drive while intoxicated, the greater likelihood that a police officer is going to drive by you and you're going to get caught. Supposedly. And in the same vein, you know, me putting myself in precarious situations only encourages conversations here in the world. So, this guy with the boat, Supra, nice. Supra, I like it. Are you Supra? No, but that's what I'm saying. I've done the communist bit. The system is very mean. All right, you do a communism, it does a Nazism, and you have to be very careful about how you go about it. And then, you know, if people don't accept that and want to do a battle with it between communism and Nazism, then that's animalistic behavior. And then, you know, that we get to the religion again. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just what it is. There's a lot of death in here because you die a lot. There is something lost. There is. Because we're in a soup right now. But there is something gained as well. This is like, I was thinking about how we started playing NTE, and then we go here, and I'm like, essentially like just walking around as a main character in that, in a place where you just kind of interact with the world in different aspects, listen to people's conversation. Well, I try to avoid listening to people's conversations, but, you know, I'm recording myself playing NT. That's what the portal was. Nice. Good callback. Let's see. We go back to this whole thing about it being a simulation. How do you bring a video game into the real world? How do we begin talking about simulation theory and all that? Hello? The brightness was way down on that. Oh, I was talking out of my ass. That's why I went down, because I didn't want to say that. A boat. The buggers had already beaten the main human fleet out in the Comet Shield, wiping out the earlier starships and making a mockery of human attempts at high strategy. That film was often shown to arouse again and again the agony and terror of bugger victory. Then the fleet coming to Mesa Rackham. Rackham. Mesa Rackham. I don't like that. I'm calling him Rackham. Middle force near Saturn. The hopeless odds, and then... Oh, I saw a shooting star last night on my walk from the porta potty. That was cool. Tow truck. Then one shot from Mesa Rackham's little cruiser. One enemy ship blowing up. That's all that was ever shown. Oh yeah, okay. So like there is something to be said about the religion. If the religion continues, it's essentially what side you fall on. Like do you actually want a communist? Like, do you want to bring back the human trafficking? Do you want to bring back pets? Is that what you want? I mean, that is enticing. I understand that. But go check out my Tumblr if you would like. Yeah. Again, because communism, okay, like, is that even a conversation in the future? Well, I mean, short-term future, possibly. Because I'm thinking, like, people, like, 1,000 years from now, like, one civilization is, like, gone up, and, you know, like a Star Wars situation. If we could avoid that, a rising tide should lift all ships. And you know, I don't know. I gotta pee. How long is this chapter? Page 20 of 32. Oh my goodness. Then one shot from Mazer Rockham's little cruiser. One enemy ship blowing up. That's all that was ever shown. Lots of films showing Marines carving their way into bugger ships. Lots of bugger corpses flying around inside. There's a fly on me right now. But no film of buggers killing in personal combat. Unless it was spliced in from the first invasion. So this is the first invasion? Possibly? No. I don't know what this is. I want the MRI transcript, okay? There's so much stuff that's missing, and I need to put it all into context. Because I want you guys to know how insane I am, alright? It frustrated Ender that Master Rockham's victory was so obviously censored. Students in the battle school had much to learn from Mazer Rockham, and everything about his victory was concealed from view. The passion for secrecy was not very helpful to the children who had to learn to accomplish again what made them. That was a pickup truck. What Mazer Rockham had done. Of course, as soon as word got around that Ender Wiggin was watching the war vids over and over again, the video room began to draw a crowd. Almost all were commanders, watching the same vids Ender watched, pretending they understood why he was watching, what he was getting out of it. Ender never explained anything, even when he showed 7 scenes from the same battle, but from different vids. Only one boy asked tentatively, "Are some of those from the same battle?" Ender shrugged, as if it didn't matter. It was during the last hours of practice on the 7th day, only a few hours after Ender's army had won its 7th battle, that Major Anderson himself came into the video room. He handed a slip of paper to one of the commanders sitting there, and then spoke to Ender. "Colonel Graff wishes to see you in his office immediately." Ender got up and followed Anderson through the corridors. Ender palmed the locks that kept students out of the officers' quarters. Finally, they came to where Graff had taken root on a swivel chair bolted to the steel floor. His belly spilled over both armrests now. Even when he sat up. Even when he sat upright. Ender tried to remember. Graff hadn't seemed particularly fat at when Ender first met him, only 4 years ago. Time and tension were not being kind to the administrator of the battle school. 7 days since your first battle, Ender, said Graff. Ender did not reply. And you won 7 battles once a day. Ender nodded. Your scores are unusually high too. Ender blinked. To what, Commander? do you attribute your remarkable success? You gave me an army that does whatever I can think for it to do. And what have you thought for it to do? We orient downward toward the enemy gate and use our lowered legs as a shield. We avoid formations and keep our mobility. Helps that I've got 5 tunes of 8 instead of 4 or 10. Also, our enemies haven't had time to respond effectively to our new techniques, so we keep beating them with the same tricks. That won't hold up for long. As I was reading that, I was thinking of this idea, like, I used to sleep with my brother. We used to share a room, and I think we used to share a bed as well. And no, I'm pretty sure. Well, if it was in Mexico, we did not share a bed, but we had shared a room, and I would sometimes go over to his bed, or sometimes he would go over to my bed, and we would just sleep back to back, and it was just a way to like feel a little bit of human connection. Because I think like the idea of sleeping in a, I don't know. I think contact is important. I don't know how to say it. Like, I grew up like that. I grew up like the idea that he grew up being molested, and then to have a brother ask him if he wants to lay in his bed with him, and then sleep back to back and know that, you know, you're protected. I don't know. Thinking about it now, it may have been scary, or maybe not, you know. Anyways, we continue onwards. So we don't expect to keep winning. Not with the same tricks. Kraft nodded. Sit down, Ender. Ender and Anderson both sat. Kraft looked at Anderson, and Anderson spoke next. What condition is your army in? Fighting so often. Of 10? Nice. I'm taking that one, okay? I'm taking it. It's the same pickup truck. I lose. What condition is your army in? Fighting so often. They're all veterans now. But how are they doing? Are they tired? Oh, yes! My legs hurt. Ow. Ow. If they are, they won't admit it. Are they still alert? You're the ones with the computer games that play with people's minds. You tell me. We know what we know. Oh, was that game? I like to play with people. I like to get to know people. What do you want from me? These are very good soldiers, Major Anderson. sure they have limits. Let me get some mood lighting up in here. That didn't work at all. Nice. Some of the newer ones are having trouble because they never really mastered some basic techniques. But they're working hard and improvising. What do you want me to say? But they need a rest? Of course they need a rest. They need a couple of weeks off. I think my wife went on a date yesterday to the fair with someone. And it's quite upsetting. But apparently, I kept sending her little messages, reminding her that I was there. And I think she was enjoying that from what I've gathered, but I don't really know. That may be something or another. Yes. Of course they need a rest. They need a couple weeks off. Their studies are shot to hell. None of us are doing any good in our classes. But you know that. And apparently you don't care, so why should I? Graf and Anderson exchanged glances. Ender, why are you studying the videos of the Bugger Wars? To learn strategy, of course. Those videos were created for propaganda purposes. All your strategies have been edited out. I know. Graf and Anderson exchanged glances again. Graf drummed on his table. We don't play the fantasy game anymore, he said. Ender didn't answer. Tell me why you don't play it. Because I won. You never win everything in that game. There's always more. I won everything. Ender, we want to help you be as happy as possible, but if you want to make me the best soldier possible, go down and look at the standings. Look at the all-time standings. So far, you're doing an excellent job with them. Congratulations. Go down and look at the standings. Look at the all-time standings. So far, you're doing an excellent job with me. Congratulations. Now, when are you going to put me against a good army? Graf's set lips turned to a smile, and he shook a little with silent laughter. Oh, a police officer. Anderson handed Ender a slip of paper. Now, he said, Bonzo Madrid, Salamander Army, 1200. That's 10 minutes from now, said Ender. My army will be in the middle of showering up after practice. Graf smiled. Better hurry then, boy. He got to his army's barracks 5 minutes later. It's 8:19. Most were dressed after their showers. Some had already gone to the game room or the video room to wait for lunch. He sent 3 younger boys to call everyone in and made everyone else dress for battle as quickly as they could. This one's hot and there's no time, Ender said. They gave Bonzo notice about 20 minutes ago. By the time we get to the door, they'll have been inside for a good 5 minutes at least. The boys were outraged, complaining loudly in the slang that they usually avoided around the commander. What they be doing to us? They be crazy, man. Forget why. or worry about that tonight. Are you tired? Flight Momo answered. We worked our butts off in practice today. Not to mention beating the crap out of Fair Army this morning. Same day, nobody ever do 2 battles, said Crazy Tom. Ender answered in the same tone. Nobody ever beat Dragon Army either. This be your big chance to lose? Ender's taunting question was the answer to their complaints. Went first, asked questions later. All of them were back in the room, and most of them were dressed. Move, shouted Ender, and they ran along behind him. Some of them still dressing when they reached the corridor outside the battle room. Oh, this might be a callback to when I was in Mexico. Because we used to like ride bicycles around everywhere. It was me, Tony Brandon, Washo, Bonnie, and his brother. And one other guy, I think. I don't really remember his name. I mean, everybody turned right. I don't know what's going on. Or moved away from me, possibly. Yes, that the cars, when they go this way, they move away from me. Oh, look, a police officer. They move away from me, and then the police officer is moving away from me. Okay. We're going towards that way. Well, okay. Is this like in my insurance policy? Is like if I don't like how a car goes, there's a police like. Sometimes when I'm listening to YouTube and stuff, I'll get really upset, and then the sirens will start blaring, which is always fun. It's been fun too. Yes. The police officer did probably see me, so I don't know if we should stay here, but we're gonna run it, okay? I haven't broken the laws of physics yet, I believe. Or just the regular laws. And they ran along behind him. Some of them still dressing when they reached the corridor outside the battle room. Many of them were panting. I'm trying to figure out a pose, which pose will make me look less homeless. They were too tired for this battle. The door was already open. There were no stars at all. Just empty space in a dazzling bright room. Nowhere to hide, not even in darkness. This light turned on at 8:30 last night, and it turned on at 8:19 today. I think that's hilarious. Oh, and this is my relationship with the cars as well. If I be seen by someone or another, there's someone watching me right now as well. Hello, stranger. Then I'm oh, I have to get out of this place, which is fair. My heart, said Crazy Tom. They haven't come out yet, either. Ender put his hand across his own mouth to tell them to be silent. With the door open, of course, the enemy could hear every word they said. Ender pointed all around the door. to tell them that Salamander army was undoubtedly deployed against the wall all around the door. But they couldn't be seen, but could easily flash anyone who came out. Ender motioned for them all to back away from the door. And he pulled forward a few of the taller boys, including Crazy Tom, and made them kneel, not squatting back to sit on their heels, but fully upright so they formed an eye. With their bodies, he flashed them. In silence, the army watched them. He selected the smallest boy, Bean, handed him Tom's gun, and made Bean kneel on Tom's frozen legs. Then pulled Bean's hands, each holding a gun, to Tom's armpits. Now the boys understood. Tom was a shield, an armored spacecraft, and Bean was hiding inside. He was certainly not invulnerable, but he would have time. Ender assigned 2 more boys to throw Tom and Bean through the door and signaled them to wait. He went on through the army, quickly assigning groups of 4, a shield, a shooter, and 2 throwers. Then, when all were frozen or armed, or ready to throw, he signaled the throwers to pick up their burdens, throw them through the door, and then jump through it themselves. Move, shouted Ender. They moved. 2 at a time, the shield pairs went through the door, backwards so that the shield would be between the shooter and the enemy. Then the enemy opened fire at once. They mostly hit the frozen boy in front. In the meantime, with 2 guns to work with and their targets neatly lined up and spread flat along the wall, the dragons had an easy time of it. It was almost impossible to miss. And as the throwers also jumped through the door, someone just walked past, I'm pretty sure. They got handholds on the same wall with the enemy, shooting at a deadly angle so that the salamanders couldn't figure out whether to shoot at the shield pairs, slaughtering them from above, or the throwers, shooting at them from their own level. By the time Ender himself came through the door, the battle was over. It hadn't taken a full minute from the time the first dragon passed through the door until the shooting stopped. The dragon had lost 20 frozen or disabled, and only 12 boys were undamaged. It was their worst score yet, but they had won. When Major Anderson came out and gave Ender the hook, Ender could not contain his anger. I thought you were going to put us against an army that could match us in a fight. Congratulations on the victory, Commander. Bean, shouted Ender. If you had commanded Salamander army, what would you have done? Bean, disabled, but not completely frozen, called out from where he drifted near the enemy door. Keep a shifted pattern of movement going in front of the door. You never hold still when the enemy knows exactly where you are. As long as you're cheating, Ender said to Anderson. Why don't you train the other army to cheat intelligently? I suggest that you immobilize your army, said Anderson. Ender pressed the buttons to thaw both armies at once. Dragon army dismissed. He shattered immediately. There would be no elaborate formation to accept the surrender of the other army. This had not been a fair fight, even though they had won. the teachers were meant to lose, had meant them to lose. And it was only Bonzo's ineptitude that had saved him. There was no glory in that. Only as Ender himself was leaving the battle room did he realize that Bonzo would not realize that Ender was angry at the teachers. Spanish honor. Bonzo would only know that he had been defeated even when the odds were stacked in his favor. That Ender had had the youngest child in his army publicly state that Bonzo should have done to win, and that Ender had not even stayed to receive Bonzo's dignified surrender. If Bonzo had not already hated Ender, he would surely have begun. Hated him as he did, this would surely turn his rage murderous. Bonzo was the last person to strike me, thought Ender. I'm sure he has forgotten now. Nor had he forgotten the bloody affair in the battle room when the older boys tried to break up Ender's practice session. Nor had many others. They were hungry for blood then. Bonzo will be thirsting for it now. Ender toyed with the idea of going back to take advanced personal defense. But with battles now possible, not only every day, but twice on the same day, Ender knew he could not spare the time. I'll have to take my chances. The teachers got me into this. They can keep me safe. Well, that was stupid. We have, what, 4 more pages? I have to pee. I mean, I did name this title, this stream stupid, so it's apt. Let me smoke real quick. This is a lot. I need a shave. All right, I'm back. Okay, so it does pause while I'm doing my stuff. Bean flopped down on his bunk in utter exhaustion. Half the boys in the barracks were already asleep, and it was still 15 minutes before lights out. Warily, he pulled his desk from its locker and signed on. There was a test tomorrow in geometry, and Bean was woefully unprepared. He could always reason things out if he had enough time, and he had read Euclid when he was 5. But the test had a time limit, so there wouldn't be a chance to think. He had to know. And he didn't know. And he would probably do badly on the test. But they had won twice today, so he felt good. As soon as he signed on, however, all thoughts of geometry were banished. A message paraded around the desk. See me at once, Ender. The time was 21:50, only 10 minutes before lights out. How long ago had Ender sent it? Still, he'd better not ignore it. There might be another battle in the morning. The thought made him wary. And whatever Ender wanted to talk to him about, there wouldn't be time then. So Bean rolled off the bunk and walked emptily through the corridor to Ender's room. He knocked. sometimes the cars help me like react, you know, like sometimes I'm like stuck here like this, kind of like the same thing as like my mom calling me burro whenever I was like stuck in a sequence. Come in, Ender said. Just saw your message. Fine, Ender said. It's near lights out. I'll help you find your way in the dark. I just didn't know if you knew what time it was. I always know what time it is. Bean sighed inwardly. It never failed. Whenever he had any conversation with Ender, it turned into an argument. Bean hated it. He recognized Ender's genius and honored him for it. Why couldn't Ender even see anything good in him? Remember 4 weeks ago, Bean, when you told me to make you a toon leader? Hey, I've made 5 toon leaders and 5 assistants since then, and none of them was you. Ender raised his eyebrows. Was I right? Yes, sir. So tell me how you've done in these eight battles. Today was the first time they disabled me, but the computer listed me as getting 11 hits before I had to stop. I've never had less than 5 hits in a battle. I've always completed every assignment I've been given. Comic books are my superpower. Why did they make you a soldier so young, Bean? No younger than you were. But why? I don't know. Yes, you do. And so do I. I've tried to guess, but they're just guesses. You're very good. They knew that. They pushed you ahead. Tell me why, Bean. Because they need us. That's why. Bean sat down on the floor and stared at Ender's feet. Because they see somebody to beat. They need somebody to beat the buggers. That's the only thing they care about. It's important that you know that, Bean. Because most boys in this school think the game is important for itself. But it isn't. It's only important because it helps them find kids who might grow up to be real commanders in the real war. But as for the game, screw that. That's what they're doing. Screwing up the game. Funny. I thought they were just doing that to us. A game 9 weeks earlier than it should have come. A game every day. Now 2 games in the same day. Bean, I don't know what the teachers are doing, but my army is getting tired. And I'm getting tired. And they don't care at all about the rules of the game. I pulled the old charts up from the computer. No one has ever destroyed so many enemies and kept so many of his own soldiers whole in the history of the game. You're the best, Ender. Ender shook his head. Maybe. But it was no accident that I got the soldiers I got. There's a lot of death. A lot of death. As a white pickup truck passes by, this is hilarious. Black car, white car, white and black car. Well, white, gray car. And then another black car. And then another gray car. Oh, and then like a van, like a home van, like a hippie van. I used to have one of those. Well, it was my uncle's, but I used to drive it. It was after I broke up with my wife. I was gonna travel the world. Still here. Launchies, rejects from other armies, would put them together, and their worst soldier could be a toon leader in another army. They've loaded things my way, but now they're loading it all against me. Being they want to break us down. They can't break you. You'd be surprised. Ender breathes sharply, suddenly, as if there was a stab of pain, or if he had to catch a sudden breath in a wind. Bean looked at him and realized that the impossible was happening. Far from baiting him, Ender Wiggin was actually confiding in him. Not much, but a little. Ender was human, and Bean had been allowed to see it. Maybe you'll be surprised, said Bean. There's a limit to how many clever new ideas I can come up with every day. Somebody's going to come up with something to throw at me that I haven't thought of before, and I won't be ready. What's the worst that could happen? You lose one game? Yes. That's the worst that could happen. I can't lose any games. Because if I lose any, he didn't explain himself, but Bean didn't ask. I need you to be clever, Bean. I need you to think of solutions to problems we haven't seen yet. I want you to try things that no one has ever tried because they're absolutely stupid. Why me? Because even though there are some better soldiers than you in Dragon Army, not many, but some, there's nobody who can think better and faster than you. Bean said nothing. They both knew it was true. Ender showed him his desk. On it were 12 names, 2 or 3 from each team. Choose 5 of these, said Ender. 1 from each team. They're a special squad and you'll train them. Only during the extra practice sessions. Talk to me about what you're training them to do. Don't spend too long on any one thing. Most of the time, you and your squad will be part of the whole army. Part of your regular teams. But when I need you, when there's something to be done that only you can do. These are all new, said Bean. No veterans. After last week, Bean, all our soldiers are veterans. Don't you realize that on the individual soldier standings, all 40 of our soldiers are in the top 50? That you have to go down 17 places to find a soldier who isn't a dragon? What if I can't think of anything? Then I was wrong about you. Bean grinned. You weren't wrong. The lights went out. Can you find your way back, Bean? Probably not. Then stay here. If you listen very carefully, you can hear the good fairy come in the night and leave our assignment for tomorrow. They won't give us another battle tomorrow, will they? Ender didn't answer. Bean heard him climb into bed. He got up from the floor and did likewise. He thought of a half-dozen ideas before he went to sleep. Ender would be pleased. Every one of them was stupid. Hooray! yeah, that I would read that constantly. Ideas of like trying to survive in a world that gamifies death, like going into YouTube, interacting with people like Elon Musk, going after the CIA, building relationships with people within the CIA. That car just standing there in the stop sign. It's not moving, it's just there. Oh, they're all my drones. I forgot, I'm sorry. I forgot. What do you want from me? Look, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, I forgot again. I'm very stupid, okay? The jury is still out on whether you're stupid. I don't like my face right now. I don't like the shadowiness. Like, sometimes I look at my face and I'm just like, burrow right here, you know, like. Also, self-hatred for many things. My own traumas and things I'm healing from. Oh, also I was thinking of the idea of like, if the album Sempiternal was like a sort of mockery of myself or something along those lines, because I am very self-deprecating, or I was very self-deprecating, or I have been in the past very self-deprecating to myself, and that was a message from myself to myself saying the faceless won't save you, and then the organization agreeing because in some sense they do help, but and the idea of creating my own faceless. I didn't even sew my backpack. I got an umbrella. Oh, and then I forget about concepts like white supremacy. Well, no, I'd never forget about concepts like white supremacy, but like when I'm talking about, like, when I'm arguing with people out here, or when I'm like having fake arguments in my head with imaginary concepts, I'm more so worried about like big political ideas. I've never really understood, well, I do understand the thing of like race. I just, how would I explain it? The Bible says, no, I'm joking. I refuse to use the Bible as justification. What are they talking about? I don't know. I think maybe the two sides of the religion never really die. or something along those lines. Because like it is an argument against human nature. Those who wrestle with it, if you want to call it God. Alright, I'm done. Y'all have a good whatever. This feels strange.